Welcome to For the Sake of the Argument, Don Ufford. You're running for U.S. Congress, the 11th Congressional District, to be clear, to replace our current Congressperson, Haley Stevens. What made you want to run for this seat now? And before you answer that, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I started out just as, a normal kid. On a farm and, grew up with mom and dad. And
where was the
worked on
farm
stuff.
at?
The farm was in South Dakota.
Okay.
And right outside the University of South Dakota. Great place to be because you had, a great university that you could learn stuff from. Big library in that, which is super cool to be able to go to. But, we were always working on stuff. Dad worked in a local factory. And that was great because he had a union job and, we were able to get those benefits with healthcare. And I didn't realize how fortunate we were, until I grew up. But I eventually got a chance to go off to college. And because of good government, Pell Grants and National Direct Student Loans, I was able to go and get an engineering degree and come out to Ford Motor Company in Michigan. And great job there. Loved working at Ford. Met my wife. Got married. We have 2 kids. Super proud of our kids. They're out of the house now, empty nesters. But, we love them, and they're off doing their own thing. And that gave me an opportunity then when I left Ford to really look and see what could I do to help. And I think that gets to that other question that you asked is, I'm interested in helping. So I went out to work for the Biden administration in the U.S. Department of Commerce, worked on the Chips and Science Act to bring semiconductor manufacturing back here to the United States and train people for those good jobs.
Which was a problem, right? We had a drought of being able to get parts like that.
Oh my goodness, do you remember that?
Yes.
There were vehicles parked out at the airport. You could see them parked there. They were parked all over. We didn't have enough semiconductors. And so we went to work on that. And then I got a call to go over to the White House to work for President Biden on the EV transition. Super cool working on that and, helping to bring about EVs. But then the Trump administration comes along and just the chaos and cruelty and corruption, it's too much. I left. I couldn't stand being part of it. And I thought I could do a lot more for Michiganders by raising my hand and running for fairness and fairness to help people, lift people up. That's why I'm running. I want to make sure that we're out there fighting for normal, everyday Michiganders and, people that want a great job with a living wage so they can have confidence that they can go to work and they can earn enough money that they can come home with their family and they have time to come home and go out and be part of their kids' activities. That's important. And then health insurance. Health insurance is so critical. And we need that. And my family's experienced that. My wife, she had to get a heart transplant. She had a heart disease. And
I didn't know that.
Oh, my goodness. And, is one of those things that she'd lived with it for a long time, but there finally came a point where it wasn't going to go on much longer and she needed a heart transplant. So because we had health insurance and the Affordable Care Act to help with her recovery, we were able to get a heart transplant. And that is important to, I think, everybody, as is lowering costs and fighting for our freedoms, our fundamental freedoms that are under attack with this administration. It's horrible what's going on, how they're trying to restrict voting rights and women's rights and the ability to speak up and speak out. So I'm going to fight back against that and hold them accountable for this nasty stuff that they're doing, because current career politicians, sitting members of Congress, it seems like they don't have a backbone. They are not willing to stand up against this administration and fight for what's right. And I'm going to go and hold them accountable and make sure we get good government that's fair. Fairness in delivery, fairness in who pays, fairness for people.
This 11th congressional district race is very crowded, including our current state senator, Jeremy Moss. What makes you the best candidate for this race?
Frankly, I'm not a career politician. I didn't plan to do this my entire life. You just heard. I grew up like everybody else. I didn't grow up in the political process, like, some of our candidates like Jeremy, who's been a politician his entire life. And I've had to work. I've had to work to make sure my family has enough to eat and, struggle with what do we buy at the grocery store and, make those decisions about what activities do the kids do and how do we get by on an everyday basis. And, that really helps, I think, as I look back on it, it helps me relate to what's going on now today because it doesn't seem fair. If you're an average voter out there, you're looking going, these career politicians, they're protected by the system. It's like the system, the political elite have already decided who needs to be elected. And they've decided who needs to be elected because they've helped each other out through the process and not necessarily the people that are out there. And I think that's wrong. And that's why I'm out, meeting voters all the time, not only knocking on doors, but, I'm going places where, maybe normal career politicians don't go. And I'm listening to people that I think we got to bring back into the Democratic Party, those people that work and are actually struggling today. And I think good government can help. And that's what I want to do.
Okay, and I have to ask because people ask me everything, including what my recipe for macaroni salad is, and I'll never give it up. But have you ever been a Republican or voted Republican, or is Democrat been your bent for a long time?
I'm a Democrat. I absolutely will go out and talk to Republicans. And I have done that because there's plenty of Republicans who have voted Republican recently, but used to be Democrats. And right now we struggle at 48% or less in the Democratic Party. People are like, hey, are you going to do anything? Are you going to get anything done? And I'm the person who's had to get stuff done. Whether it's on the farm planting corn, I couldn't just, dump corn in the corn planter, drive it to the end of the row and just leave it there and think somebody else is going to get it done. I couldn't, when I was working at Ford and engineering the F-150, I couldn't say, here's wheels, somebody put them on. I hope that gets done. I had to make sure all that stuff was done. And so, that's where career politicians, they'll say, hey, you know what, somebody else will get that done. And, there's 9 bills left stalled on the floor. Like the Democrats got them passed and they had to go back on vacation and they couldn't just get them over to the governor. Like, I agree the Republicans, they should have sent it over. I'm mad at them for that. I'm madder at ourselves because we didn't just finish the job. Finish the job, get it done, get it over to the governor, and this wouldn't be a distraction. That's why I'm running. I want to get things done, and I'm going to listen to people who say costs are too high. I'm worried about my job. I'm worried about my insurance. I'm worried about this administration cracking down, and nobody will stand up against them. Those are independents, Democrats, those are all over.
This election cycle is all about the rising cost of living. All about it. And one of the major drivers is the war in Iran. Honestly, when I say that, I feel like I'm telling an untruth. We're fucking at war with Iran. So do you think congressional Democrats have done enough to oppose this war? And what more would you do?
Oh, gosh, no. We absolutely haven't. And there's even candidates that are running who haven't stood up. I was the first one to stand up and say, we shouldn't be doing this and Trump needs to be held accountable. Trump has gone out there he didn't know why he was going to war. He and his administration, they've been making stuff up ever since they started. So they don't know why they went to war. They don't know how long it's going to last. They don't know how it's going to end. They don't know how much it's going to cost. They went and asked for what, $200 billion to fund this war? We could have funded health care. We could have funded health care for all the Americans that are losing it today with the cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, the Affordable Care Act. Like, that's crazy. And they have no plan going forward. What today? They just announced that, well, now we're blockading the Strait of Hormuz. Last week, they said we're fighting to open the Strait of Hormuz. Now we're blocking the Strait of Hormuz, and service members are getting killed. Service members are getting killed. Service members are getting injured. Our allies are less safe. Everybody around the world is less safe, and the economic situation is horrible. Price of gas coming here today, it's above $4 a gallon, and it's going to go up. You just heard the announcement. The price of oil is headed back up with these latest threats. You know, that impacts everybody. I don't care whether you're a Republican, Democrat, or independent. It impacts everybody. And if you go and ask these farmers out there, the price of their fertilizer is going up. That means the price of our food's going up. Price of that diesel fuel is going up for that farm equipment, for plumbers, for electricians, for people that work with their hands and need a truck to haul their equipment, landscapers. It's going up for everybody. Absolutely irresponsible. And Congress needs to stand up. I've said we need to stop this. I've said absolutely we need to stop this. We need to hold Trump and his cronies accountable. There's unlawful acts that have happened. He talks like a war criminal.
He is a war criminal.
Nobody's standing up against him.
Yeah,
That's unacceptable. We
Yeah.
got to stand up. We got to fight back and hold him accountable. And, you know, one of my competitors, Jeremy Moss, has said, we need a report. Like, what do you mean need a report? We don't need a report. We need action.
Right.
We need to get things done. That's why people say Democrats don't get stuff done.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I spend $75 a week more in gas because I fill up as a realtor 3 times a week. So 75 times 52 weeks, that's a lot of money. And we're getting sick and tired of it. So I think we agree Democrats are not doing enough. What direction do you think the party should be heading in? Are you happy with our penchant for staying in the middle, being nice to everybody, playing nicely?
We need to be looking out for working people. Absolutely number one. People that work out there, working with their hands, are working to lift themselves up. That's the American way. You work hard, you get rewarded for it. You get paid a living wage. You're able to support your family. You don't get screwed by politicians who don't deliver what you're supposed to deliver. You know, we got politicians. We, the people, we passed, you know, we voted and passed and said minimum wage ought to be raised and sub-minimum wage ought to be eliminated. And we had politicians in Lansing that said, no, we're going to ignore you. We can't hear that. And we're going to vote against it. We know better. Well, I don't know better than voters. I'll tell you, voters are the ones out there that they're working hard to try and just make ends meet out there. And so I think what we got to do is we got to, number one, listen to voters and work for those voters. And that means to me, good jobs, good union jobs, building infrastructure and innovation. And both of those bring in opportunities for people who work with their hands and are part of a union, which, by the way, that's a way to build the middle class with good benefits, with good wages, safety and security for people. And we need to make sure that we're supporting unions, passing the PRO Act, getting that out there so we can help protect that right to organize, and going and building up our small and medium businesses and our innovators. In Michigan, we're so innovative. We know how to dream about things and create things and put things together, and we need to build that up. And our small, medium businesses, they're part of our Main Street. So we got to bring costs down. Tariffs are crazy too high. We need to revoke those tariffs that are useless out there and make sure we're addressing that. And utility costs. Utility costs are too high in part because you got the Trump administration canceling clean energy projects that bring on board more energy. We need more energy going forward. We can't stop it. And, you know, we got career politicians that are taking money from, you know, utility companies and then turning around and saying, yeah, it's okay for them to raise rates. That's crazy.
On that subject, one of the biggest issues in Michigan right now, and probably for the rest of our lives, is the negative effects of AI data centers. How would you regulate these developments in Congress? What would you do?
Yeah, I talk to voters all the time about this. And last week I was out with a group of voters, you know, very similar question, but also a question about their job. So I think data centers are just part of it. And so, you know, number one, I'm going to say we want our data here in the United States. I don't want it stored in China. I don't want it stored anyplace else. And so we're going to have data centers. But when we have data centers, I want to make sure those data centers are regulated so they are wanted by the community, number one. So we need to be transparent with our community members, transparent with voters. This goes back to how do we as Democrats be trusted? We're transparent. We got to open up and share and make sure people can see what's going to happen and let them vote and let them understand here's the implications, because we can't have data centers that are polluting our air, taking our water, raising our rates. So we need to make sure that we have agreements in place with community benefits so that our communities benefit from those data centers coming in. So in fact, there are jobs that pay well, and there are benefits, and the environment is protected. We're not trashing our water. We're not trashing our air. We're not hurting the noise. Noise from data centers can go on. We have to protect that. And rates. We need to make sure our ratepayers are protected. And this can't be something that we build ahead of time. And then if one of these data centers, poof, disappears, we get stuck with the bill. We need to make sure that we have the ability up front to cover those costs, to make sure that whoever's building it covers those costs. And I got to say, beyond the data center, we also need comprehensive guidance on how do you get that data coming in? How do you get the data coming into the data center? How do we protect consumers from the privacy problems and security and safety, and then the data going out and the information going out? The data centers are just part of it. Because there are now algorithms out there that I don't know, are they going to treat you fairly? Are they going to treat my neighbor fairly? Are they going to treat me fairly? We don't know right now. It's hidden. It's cloaked. So we need legislation to say we understand the transparency. We understand how these algorithms operate, what happens with our data coming in, what happens with our data going out. How do we know if AI has been involved or not? I don't know today. Do you know today when AI is involved?
I don't even understand your answer, because I bet most people listening don't, because we don't know. Data transfers, to me, I'm not a techie person. I just learned how to copy and paste, and I'm very proud. But anyway, how the data transfer that you're talking about and preserving its integrity, when you talk about algorithms, what are you inferring? That this data could be shaved off to some other people that can use it for their own purposes?
Exactly.
So
exactly. We don't know today.
Okay.
Because as you use your phone, as you do a question in your phone and you say, hey, Siri, then it's going somewhere and it's calculating something to give you an answer. So number one, you've given it information about yourself. You'd said, hey, Siri, help me get the best price for hamburger.
Wow, I got you.
And now all of a sudden it knows about you. It knows that you, Lori Goldman, have requested this. Oh, Lori likes that. Let's make sure I try and sell more stuff to her about that. And I've now captured this information. And then who are they going to sell that to? I don't know. And what if you ask something even more private, like, hey, I'm thinking about retiring and I have $100,000. What should I do with that? Who gets that information? How is that thing out there that's doing the calculations when you said, hey, Siri?
Yeah.
And how is it selling that back to you? I don't know today. You don't know today.
Okay, that's very terrifying. And okay. All right. I almost can't finish the questions because I'm stunned by that. But I guess that's been out there all this time.
We need to understand it. And it needs to be in a way that people, and you're right, sorry I used the word algorithm, but that coming from an engineer, I'm worried about how things are calculated. And that's where we need guidelines and guardrails that people can count on and trust. And good government can do that. And Democrats that are going to stand up and speak out and act, they can help get that done.
Without worrying about how much DTE money they're not going to get for their next campaign.
Exactly.
Maybe something like that. And speaking of that,
I don't have any DTE money.
Do you take any PAC money?
I have not taken APAC money. I'm not taking PAC money. You've seen that I've said no corporate PAC money. I'm not taking corporate PAC money. I'm not taking APAC money. I'm not taking money from health insurers. I am responding to people. I'm taking money from individuals who believe in me, who say, I want somebody who isn't influenced, not a career politician, somebody who doesn't have the blessing of the party who's already pre-selected me. I am out talking to individuals and telling them, here's what I want to do for people. And if you believe in me, if you believe in that, then please make a contribution to me. And so far, it seems to have worked. I got more donors than any other candidate out there. I'm just being honest.
You have more than the people you're running against.
I have more than the people I'm running against. Yep.
Wow.
So as you take a look at, the career politician, Jeremy Moss, I got more than, now I don't have more PAC money than he does. He has plenty of PAC money, and, utilities have jumped in to support him and others, but I don't have that. I've said, no, I don't want that. I'm going to run on a people-powered campaign.
Okay. All right. Do you have a favorite project that you worked on during your time at Ford Motor Company? What was the favorite thing that you added your name to and your talent?
Absolutely. I'm going to say there's two of them that were groundbreaking. The F-150, and just because that helps so many working people out there. And it's brilliant when you're out talking to customers, and customers are like, hey, it would be nice if it could. And, it used to be that little wonky, sorry, I can get this way, but if you have a big trailer on behind, you usually have brakes on the trailer, and you want the brakes on the trailer to help you stop.
Right.
Well, it used to be you had to buy an extra thing that you kludged in and taped into the truck. Well, our engineering team engineered something that's integrated into the truck, so you can just plug it in and your trailer brakes work. And it was like a miracle. People would go out and buy the truck just for that feature because it's so easy and handy and safe and integrated. And that made me feel wonderful that that's out there. And the second one is, the electric vehicles. And the Mustang Mach-E, and bring an electric vehicle, into the market that people can drive and feel confident in, and it's very capable. I'm really proud of that, because I think all along clean energy is important. And, to me, I'd worked over the decades always making vehicles cleaner and cleaner and better. And I felt like electric vehicles were that nice culmination where I was able to get a vehicle that properly teamed together with clean energy, which I think we can do here in Michigan almost better than most other states. We can manufacture parts for solar systems and wind energy, and we can do that along with mobility, and we know how to do that, and healthcare products, absolutely, we know how to do that. But we can do more of that for the entire nation and serve the entire nation by bringing more clean energy on board, and electric vehicles are part of that. Not all of it, but part of it.
If you win your race for Congress, what's the first piece of legislation you're going to introduce?
To ban congressional stock trading. And
hallelujah.
It shouldn't be
Can that be done?
Yeah, it absolutely should be done. I don't know if it can be done. I don't know if that's a stupid thing, politically to do, but I think it should be done. We shouldn't have that influence. The career politicians are able to take, we talked earlier about this PAC money, the Political Action Committee money. They can take PAC money from a corporation, go in and that same day trade on that exact same stock, and then they can go out and do legislation for that exact same organization. It's like, what? That doesn't seem fair to me. And that's why I'm trying to fight for fairness.
Yeah, it does. It's not fair. It's fucked up.
It's not fair.
Well, Don Ufford, I want to thank you very much for being with us today and answering our questions on For the Sake of the Argument. Thank you.
Thank you.